smack a big bitch. What that bitch wanna do? I send you right to the Lord.
At exactly midnight on June 25, 2023, 28-year-old Jassity Strong raised a shot glass wine to toast with her mother to make the beginning of her 28th birthday celebration party through a FaceTime call. Her mother, Tamika Jenkins, sang happy birthday from the other end, and Jassity laughed, whispering, "Happy birthday to me." Those were the last words they would ever share. By dawn, Jassity was lying in the street outside an auto detail shop on 57th Street and Prospect Avenue, her blood mixing with asphalt. What began as a double birthday party, celebrating Jassity's 28th and Nico Manning's 22nd, ended in carnage. In the crowd that night stood 26-year-old Kievon Green. Just 48 hours earlier, he had walked free from jail on a $1,000 bond. A man with a violent record, carrying a gun into a party meant for family and friends. Witnesses say it sounded like a battlefield, more than 75 shots ripping through the night. When the smoke cleared, 3 people were dead. Jassity Strong, who never made it home to her children, Nico Manning, who had just turned 22 days before, Camden Brown, shot in the back for standing up against disrespect. 6 others lay wounded. Ambulances took nearly 45 minutes to arrive, as families watched loved ones slip away. June 25, 1995. Jassity Strong was born in Kansas City, Missouri. By the time she turned 28, the day she would die, she had already built a life defined by resilience and love. She was the mother of 2 children who were her entire world. By day, a certified nursing assistant caring for seniors in living facilities. By night, a rising makeup artist, earning recognition as a semi-finalist in the Kansas City People's Choice Awards. She was the family comedian, the one who filmed herself jumping on her mom's bed, singing nonsense songs just to make everyone laugh. To her siblings, she was a role model. To her friends, she was the one who always made sure everyone had what they needed. Her family's foundation was a place they jokingly called Club Mama's house. The split-level home in South Kansas City where her mother, Tamika Jenkins, opened the door for anyone who needed comfort, food, or music. And that's where Jassity wanted her birthday celebration. Her wish was simple: for my birthday, party at Club Mama's house. Jassity Strong carried compassion into her professional life as a certified nursing assistant. Her mother, Tamika Jenkins, shared how Jassity loved taking care of people, a calling that deepened when she witnessed how her family's matriarch was treated in long-term care facilities. That experience ignited in her a determination to make a difference in the lives of elders who often go unnoticed. She balanced that caretaking role with such grace that she inspired others, patients, families, and her co-workers. It was more than a job, it was a heartfelt mission shaped by personal experience and compassion. At the center of Jassity's life was her relationship with her mother, Tamika Jenkins. Their home, lovingly called Club Mama's house, was a South Kansas City gathering place. A split-level home where music, dancing, food, and laughter filled every corner. Tamika described it as a safe haven, a place everyone came to feel the strength of family. It was in that house that Jassity wanted her birthday celebrated. She specifically requested, "For my birthday, party at Club Mama's house." Their bond was built on shared joy, mutual devotion, and a warmth that defined their lives together. While details are sparser about Jassity's relationship with the father of her children, we know he was Michael Williams Sr., Jr.'s father. He remained part of the family unit after her death, caring for their son as Tamika took in Kirsten. Their intertwined lives point to a family navigating complex love and loss with mutual commitments, even in grief, to uphold Jassity's wishes and family bonds. Jassity had a vibrant streak of creativity that shone through her work as a makeup artist. She was self-taught, a skill that turned her into a rising local name. Her passion and talent earned her a spot as a semi-finalist in a Kansas City People's Choice Award that spring. She brought beauty and confidence to others, offering a kind of artistry rooted in empathy and spirit. According to her obituary, she loved having fun, capturing moments, good or bad, and when there was a room full of loved ones, nobody could stop her from being the life of the party. Her presence wasn't just seen, it was felt. But while Jassity was celebrating her 28th birthday, another figure was stepping into the picture. A 26-year-old named Kievon Green, a man with a record of violence, out on bond just 2 days earlier. He would soon become the reason this night of joy ended in tragedy. Police records show multiple arrests tied to drugs and encounters with law enforcement. Each time the charges grew more serious. Each time the warning signs became clearer. On June 23, 2023, just 2 days before the shooting, Green was arrested again. The charges, resisting arrest and felony drug possession. But instead of being kept in custody, Green was released. The cost of his freedom was $1,000. That bond meant more than a number on paper. It meant that despite a criminal history and charges still pending in Independence, Missouri, Green was back on the streets. Critics call it a system that prioritizes money over public safety. The decision did not weigh the risk he posed to others. It did not account for the violence in his past. It looked only at cash. No one ordered mental health intervention. No one required substance abuse treatment. There were no safeguards put in place to protect the public. The pattern was clear: arrest, release, repeat. Each time Green went through the system, the outcome was the same. Each time the opportunity to stop him was missed. And then came the night that changed everything. On June 25, 2023, Green entered an after-hours party at an auto detail shop near 57th Street and Prospect Avenue. It was a night meant for celebration. 2 birthdays under one roof, friends, family, and music filling the space. But Green was not there to celebrate. Witnesses say he carried a gun into the party. He was armed, and he was watching, a moment that should have meant nothing. Green's girlfriend greeted another man with a hug, a gesture of familiarity, a simple act of kindness. But to Green, it became something else. Witnesses say that hug triggered jealousy. Words were exchanged. The tension in the room shifted. What followed was not just a confrontation between individuals. It was the collision of one man's rage with a system that had failed to stop him time and time again. By the time the sun rose on June 25th, 3 people were dead. 6 more were wounded. And the city was left asking why a man with a record like Green's was free to carry a gun into a party at all. On the night of June 24, 2023, as Saturday bled into Sunday, dozens of people gathered at Perfect Touch Auto Detail, a small auto shop near 57th Street and Prospect Avenue in Kansas City, Missouri. By day, it was an ordinary auto detail business. But by night, it sometimes transformed into an after-hours party spot. No liquor license, no professional security, no metal detectors, just a space cleared out, lights low, speakers humming, and people arriving to celebrate. The shop's owner, Nate Gadsden, later admitted that family celebrations had been held there before. To him, this was nothing unusual. But on this night, 2 birthdays overlapped. 28-year-old Jassity Strong, the mother of 2, who had FaceTimed her mom just after midnight, marking her birthday with laughter and a toast. 22-year-old Nico Manning, celebrating the milestone of entering his 20s. Inside, friends and relatives mingled. People drank, some danced, music pulsed through the building. Outside, cars lined the street and the small parking lot. It should have been a night to remember. Instead, it became one the city will never forget. Among those at the party was Camden Brown, 29 years old, there with his girlfriend. At some point during the night, the girlfriend spotted a man she knew from school. She gave him a hug, nothing more than a friendly greeting. But that hug lit the fuse. Camden, protective and perhaps cautious in the tense environment, told the man, "Watch your hands." It was a warning, not an invitation to escalate. But in crowded, alcohol-soaked after-hours spaces, small gestures can become sparks. Nearby stood 26-year-old Kievon Green. He wasn't celebrating a birthday. He wasn't there to honor family or friends. He was watching. And he was armed. Witnesses later told investigators that Green noticed the interaction, the hug, the words. The tension in the air grew heavier. Conversations quieted. Faces turned. Something was about to break. It was around 4:30 in the morning when the night unraveled. Camden Brown's girlfriend later described what she saw. The man she hugged pulled out a gun. Camden, trying to leave the situation, was shot in the back as he and his girlfriend walked away, and then everything shattered. Kievon Green opened fire. Witnesses say it sounded like a battlefield. Reports describe more than 75 shots fired, shell casings scattered like confetti across the pavement. People screamed, glass shattered, bodies dropped. One witness later said simply, "It sounded like war in less than a minute." The auto shop turned from party hall to killing ground. Inside the chaos, Kenny Manning Sr., father of Nico, heard the gunfire outside. He ran into the night. "I heard a barrage of gunfire, bullets outside," he recalled. What he saw next would haunt him forever. His wife, Nikia Manning, bent over their son Nico, desperately performing CPR. Her clothes soaked in his blood, her hands pressing against a wound that would not close. Around them, others lay wounded. Jassity Strong, who only hours earlier laughed with her mother over FaceTime, was now motionless. Camden Brown, shot in the back, was fighting for his life but would not survive. In seconds, 3 people were dead. 6 others were injured. Families were screaming their loved ones' names into the smoke-filled air, and the help they needed did not come quickly. Reports say ambulances took as long as 45 minutes to arrive. For those who were shot, every second mattered. For some, those minutes meant the difference between life and death. By the time the gunfire stopped, the crowd was broken. Families were soaked in blood, and the man responsible, Kievon Green, was already gone, fleeing into the Kansas City night. As the sun rose over 57th and Prospect, the scene was one of utter disarray. In the parking lot and spilling into the street, bodies lay where they fell. 3 individuals, 2 men and 1 woman, were declared dead at the scene. Their names belonged to people celebrating birthdays, not victims of violence. Surrounding them, others were wounded, some transported to hospitals by private vehicles, others by ambulance. At least 5 survivors suffered varying injuries, some serious. Close-up visuals linger on overturned shoes, discarded balloons, and shell casings. Shining on pavement, evidence of a war zone in the heart of Kansas City. Everywhere investigators turned, there was a shell casing, dozens, maybe hundreds. A pattern laid bare, a cascade of bullets, not a single aimed in mercy. With that clarity, the crime scene spoke volumes. This was no isolated act. It was an indiscriminate, raging eruption of violence. Within hours, Kansas City police had a person of interest in custody. He was arrested nearly 9 miles away in Grandview, near Martha Truman Road and Interstate 70, about 5 p.m. that same day. The department swiftly indicated that charges were being prepared for prosecutors, an effort to translate evidence from carnage into accountability. As investigators mapped the scene, they combed for surveillance footage. Every angle mattered. Given the building's unofficial reputation as an after-hours hangout, footage could confirm the chaos and the killer. The footage captured the massacre, as close to truth as cold pixels can be. Every motion, every impact, every drop of blood preserved for justice. But numbers and footage cannot hold grief. At Club Mama's house, once filled with laughter and light, silence ruled. Tamika Jenkins, who once laughed with her daughter, or challenged her with playful jabs, now stared into empty rooms. She confessed it out loud, through tears, through breath. "I got lupus," she said, "and I've stopped taking my medicine. I wanted to be where they at." The illness that had once been manageable was now part of her grief. Her anchor had gone, and so had her reasons to fight for herself. Across the city, Kenny Manning Sr. recounted a grief so deep he couldn't even protect his son. "All my life I've been his protector. At that moment, I couldn't protect him." The party home, Club Mama's house, loomed empty. Swinging doors stood still. Floors that once witnessed jumps and song now held echoes. Every unoccupied chair felt weighted, every quiet corner full. The birthday wish had been simple: party at Club Mama's house. Now, every wall there knew she would never dance with her mother again. In the aftermath, the department wasn't just tending wounds. It was constructing a case. Surveillance footage, ballistic evidence, shell casing patterns, hospital records, all painstakingly logged. Investigators would present it to prosecutors for charges. First-degree assault and armed criminal action were some of the counts being prepared. But for families, legal terms offered cold comfort. Each phrase stood for a lost heartbeat, a stolen future. In the streets just beyond the scene, residents chalked memorials. Balloons drifted in wind. Some left flowers. Others scrawled, "We have to do better," on walls. Not a slogan, but a demand. Mayor Quinton Lucas, incensed, spoke to the media. "That's the reason we have rules. We make sure people have security, to prevent every homicide in the city." Yet rules were only words unless enforced. This tragedy showed what happens when policy, enforcement, and compassion fail to converge. In the cold light of investigation, the faces of victims became the story. Crime scene tape stretched, but grief broke through. As detectives charted bullet trajectories and families counted empty seats, questions lingered. How would justice move? Would accountability be enough? And what would come of the hollow silence in Club Mama's house? This wasn't only an investigation, it was a reckoning. A city would demand prevention. A family would crave closure, and a daughter's absence would echo in rooms where laughter once reigned. After the massacre at Perfect Touch Auto Detail, chaos gave way to pursuit. Investigators knew their suspect's name: Kievon Green, a man with a violent past and a record of drug charges. A 12-hour manhunt stretched across Jackson County. Officers traced witnesses' accounts, gathered surveillance footage, and cross-checked vehicle descriptions. By that evening, Green was located in Grandview, Missouri, roughly 10 miles from the crime scene. SWAT surrounded the area near Martha Truman Road and Interstate 49, taking him into custody without incident. Green was found with a gunshot wound to his hand, evidence that he had fired a weapon and injured himself during the hail of bullets. He was transported to a hospital under guard. Police knew the case would rise or fall on the cooperation of those who survived. In a city where silence often clouds investigations, witnesses stepped forward. Eyewitnesses described how Green initiated the violence, firing into the crowd after Camden Brown was shot. Some told detectives about the tension before the shooting, the hug that sparked jealousy, the warning words, and Green watching closely. Others recounted the thunder of 75-plus shots ripping into the parking lot. Their testimony created a timeline prosecutors could use to prove intent and responsibility. Surveillance cameras became silent witnesses. The auto shop system captured the crucial moments of the attack. The footage showed Green drawing a weapon and firing into the crowd. Frame by frame, the massacre unfolded, a visual record tying him to the violence. In the courtroom, this evidence would become devastating. Juries may doubt memory, but they cannot doubt their eyes. Ballistics experts compared shell casings recovered at the scene with Green's firearm. The results were conclusive. Multiple rounds were fired from his weapon, striking victims across the lot. Every casing told part of the story. Collectively, they became scientific proof that Green's gun was one of the weapons that tore lives apart that morning. And then, there was his own injury. Green's wounded hand matched the timeline, an unintended scar that confirmed his active role as a shooter. By the close of June 25th, detectives had a suspect in custody, physical evidence, linking him to the scene, video capturing the act, and witnesses willing to testify. The only question that remained was how the justice system would respond. The legal response came swiftly. On Monday, June 26, 2023, Jackson County prosecutors filed the first charges, first-degree assault and armed criminal action. But within 24 hours, as more evidence poured in, the charges escalated. On Tuesday, June 27th, Green was charged with 2 counts of second-degree murder for the deaths of Camden Brown and Nico Manning, 1 count of second-degree felony murder for the death of Jassity Strong, 3 counts of armed criminal action. These charges reflected not just the bullets Green fired, but the legal doctrine of felony murder. If you commit a violent felony and someone dies, you are responsible, whether you fired the fatal shot or not. Jackson County Prosecutor Gene Peters Baker made the position clear. This defendant is being charged with all of the events of that evening, whether he fired the fatal shot or not. The message was blunt. Green's actions unleashed the chain of death. Under Missouri law, he would bear responsibility for all of it. Prosecutors entered the courtroom with a mountain of evidence, surveillance video showing Green initiating the violence, multiple witness statements placing him at the scene with a gun in hand, ballistics evidence tying his weapon to victims, his own gunshot wound, proof that he fired during the onslaught. Together, this built a case that was more than circumstantial. It was direct, physical, undeniable. After treatment for his hand wound, Green was moved on July 1, 2023, from the hospital to the Jackson County Detention Center. He was held without bond, a striking contrast to the $1,000 release he had received just days before the massacre. Prosecutors hinted more charges could follow as forensics continued. Green's past, his actions, and the devastation of that night would all weigh heavily when he stood trial. The case against Kievon M. Green unfolded rapidly, but as of now, no official record indicates that he's been sentenced. What we do know, based on Missouri law and credible reporting, is how the system is preparing to proceed, and what defenses are likely being considered. According to the Missouri Department of Corrections, a second-degree murder conviction, a Class A felony, can carry a sentence ranging from 10 to 30 years in prison. For felony murder, the same range applies because the outcome, death caused during the commission of a violent felony, is treated under the same statutory class. Each armed criminal action charge carries a maximum 10-year sentence to be served concurrently or consecutively, depending on judicial discretion. With Green facing 2 counts of second-degree murder, 1 count of felony murder, and 3 counts of armed criminal action, his possible sentencing exposure is substantial. If a jury convicts on all counts, and if sentences run consecutively, Green could face decades behind bars. Missouri judges typically weigh factors such as prior criminal history, remorse shown, and evidence of premeditation, but the brutal nature of this crime and its deadly toll suggests the prosecution is building toward the upper end of the sentencing spectrum. The public record has yet to name Green's defense attorneys or lay out their approach. However, based on comments from criminal defense experts following the incident and common strategies in homicide trials, we can outline likely defense approaches. Missouri law allows defendants to argue they acted in self-defense, particularly if they believed their life was in immediate danger. A Kansas City criminal defense attorney noted that the state's stand-your-ground law can present a formidable defense depending on witness perceptions and the sequence of events. Green's attorneys could argue he believed he was defending himself from an imminent threat. With multiple witnesses providing differing versions of events under chaos and gunfire, the defense may aim to create doubt. Were witnesses accurate or caught in the frenzy? Discrepancies in reports of who fired first, or whether Green was the only shooter, could be leveraged to undermine the prosecution's narrative. While surveillance video clearly shows Green with a weapon, the defense might argue that the camera angles, lighting, or weapon identification are misleading. Similarly, ballistics evidence, though scientifically precise, could be contested on chain of custody or testing grounds. Under Missouri law, second-degree murder requires proving that Green knowingly caused the death of another, but without premeditation. The defense could argue that Green did not intend to kill and was instead reacting emotionally to a moment of chaos, perhaps supporting an argument for manslaughter or lesser charges. Given the strong forensic and video evidence, Green may be encouraged to plead to lesser charges, such as manslaughter or a reduced armed criminal action count, in exchange for avoiding a mandatory life sentence if convicted of multiple murder counts. At the June 27 press conference, prosecutor Jean Peters Baker said, "This defendant is being charged with all of the events of that evening, whether he fired the fatal shot or not. This signals that the prosecution is invoking the felony murder rule, making Green legally accountable for every death that occurred in the commission of his violent act, even if he did not pull the trigger on every victim." With Green now held without bond, trial preparation is underway. Experts anticipate that preliminary hearings will begin months from now, with both sides filing motions to suppress evidence, challenge counts, or negotiate. Sentencing, if found guilty, could come years down the road, but the groundwork being laid. Now in discovery, expert testimony, and pre-trial filings will shape everything. In a case that reflects both heartbreak and systemic failure, it's up to all of us to stay informed. True Crime Red Flag is committed to telling every detail, every victim, every twist, every courtroom fight. So, if you believe these stories must be seen, heard, and learned from the cameras, and the charges to the families and the futures, subscribe now to True Crime Red Flag. Because when we remember the lives lost, we demand the justice that was never earned.